Hopefully you will be able to see everything. All right. So sharing my screen, and here we go. All right, and if you can't see this, please do feel free to let me know.
We are seeing your slides, but in organizer mode as opposed to
yes,
full screen.
In organizer mode as opposed to presentation mode, and for whatever reason, as of 10 minutes ago, that's the way this has decided to do it today. So we'll just do it this way.
Thank you.
All right. So beginning then, evolving community privacy. What I want to talk about are four things: the relationship between privacy and community, between community and language, between language and law, and then between law and the future. So, beginning, privacy and community. The prior talk mentioned the core issue, which is that the difficulty that any seventh grader can tell you about in posting information about themselves online is not that you're having difficulty with what you're posting yourself. Rather, it's what other people post about you. That is, privacy isn't necessarily simply about the individual's control of data about that individual, produced by that individual, created by that individual, posted by that individual, and in fact, consented to by that individual. And there's an easy way to see this. For example, I have not used Facebook, and I generally do not enjoy their privacy practices. That said, Facebook has a detailed profile on me. They have generated that profile on me by gathering information from those who are using the site, even though I am not. That's called a shadow profile, and it's well documented. So for example, Facebook is perfectly aware of when my birthday is because my wife has entered my birthday into a calendar that was linked and then scraped by a Facebook application. Under those circumstances, the individual nature of privacy is at best misleading. So the prior presentation mentioned, and was quite correct in mentioning, that individuals not only can't really consent. If you imagine the long document that you would have to look through in order to consent, in order to really understand what you were consenting to when you were revealing information about yourself, but then to realize that it really didn't matter, because by using one of these sites or services, you were revealing information about other people. You were providing information about other people. They didn't consent at all. To take another example, consider the Google Dot, or one of the Amazon devices that can listen in on a home and then listen for people's voices and respond to commands. Now, those devices universally come with some form of end user license agreement, and they come with data use policies, sometimes called data protection policies, or more euphemistically, privacy policies. Those privacy policies, again, do not work because the people who are entering the household are not the ones who originally clicked I agree. They're not the ones who said, yes, I am okay with this device picking up my information and using it for whatever purpose. That means that the people who are affected by the use of the device have not agreed at all. The individual consent model for this kind of arrangement falls completely apart. Let me give a third example then, more recently, Clearview AI. So Clearview is a facial recognition company. They work with law enforcement, and they work with other entities, often even political organizations, to engage in facial recognition. That is, they're going to scan millions and millions of photographs. They're going to run neural networks, which is a specific kind of artificial intelligence construct that parses millions of cases for similarities, and then teach the AI to recognize faces. When we post face pictures to the web, we have not consented to their use in training a neural network for artificial intelligence purposes. We may have consented to upload and the use policies of whatever site that we've given the data to, but we haven't consented to the search, to the sweep in of that data, to the use of that data, to the training based on that data. And our data does impact other people. So our features are used to train data, to train artificial intelligence in order that it may recognize other people. Our posted data has impact for other people. Well, This creates a prisoner's dilemma. That is, when we're using these sites and services, individuals have a choice. They can either get the benefit of the site or service, even though they understand that they're not only putting their own data at risk, but they're putting other people's data at risk, that by use of the site or service, they are endangering communitarian values for privacy, not merely their own privacy. They can either get that benefit and defect from a community group, or they can choose to withhold that information, not participate in the gathering or parsing of data, and lose the value of the site or service. And that creates what's normally known as a prisoner's dilemma. That is, if you're going to get some value from the use of the thing, and other people are going to sell your data out anyway, then you might as well engage in the activity. Or transpose this to Facebook. Since Facebook has a shadow profile of people who do not use their site or service, then you might as well use the site or service. Your consent really didn't matter either way. That becomes a legal fig leaf to permit the gathering and use of this data. So, at least standard economic models will say that people will choose to defect. And this is the story that we hear, that people don't care about their privacy, that people use the sites or services anyway, that they won't make even the most simple shift in order to protect their data. Now, we know that's not true. I'll give an example from last week. So again, related to Facebook. Facebook, some time ago, purchased messaging app WhatsApp, which was a preferred method for communicating with people from other countries for a long period of time. They promised that they would not integrate data from WhatsApp with the main Facebook profile. They did then break that promise several weeks ago openly, although for some time, actually, they had been hedging and moving in on that promise. And for the first time, we saw something fairly interesting, which was that people not only left WhatsApp, there's usually a number of people who leave Facebook or leave Facebook applications when privacy statements like this are broken. But they transferred, they moved over to a different open source application called Signal, and they did it in fairly large numbers. So we know that the idea that people don't care about their privacy and that they're willing to sacrifice the privacy of others in order to obtain goods or services isn't true. That is, this prisoner's dilemma, this story where nobody cares and where we don't want privacy, where consumers don't want privacy, is just simply not us. That is, when we look at experimental results from behavioral economics, that's very different from neoclassical law and economics, where many of you may have heard of Homo economicus, right? The economic person, the person who is going to sell or use their data as long as there is some advantage to them, as long as there is some benefit to them, regardless of the damage that that may cause to others, if that doesn't bear on the original person. But humans aren't like that. Humans are something different entirely. In the lab, we begin to see the source of a new way of looking at law, a new way of developing law that can keep up with moving technology, a new way that humans cooperate at massive scale in order to handle the problems of the future. What do humans do when you put them in the lab? What humans do when you put them in the lab is they cooperate to protect each other at rates far higher than the theory would predict. That is, people are willing to go to significant lengths to protect not just their own privacy, but to protect the privacy of other people, to protect not only their own well-being, but to protect the well-being of others. It turns out that humans not only dislike being worse off than other people, humans dislike being better off than other people. People are willing to go to some cost to themselves in order to do well by other people. What this means is that the entire concept of privacy, as it has been handed to us and as it has been enshrined in law, it can be boiled down to this simple idea, that people can do what they want with data as long as the individual has received notice and has consented to the use of the data. But that entire framework is incorrect. That really what we tend to do is we tend to look at the impact we're having on the people around us. That groups, not just individuals, matter. and that groups, not just individuals, are the way that we can begin developing privacy and data controls that hold water, that satisfy human preferences in a way that the individual notice and consent model simply cannot. And we heard earlier why that's the case. The individual notice and consent model doesn't work. It doesn't work if you propertize the data. It doesn't work if you don't, because in either case, there's simply the forced question: do you agree that we can take all of your data? That is our individual notice and consent model. And until we get out of it, we're not going to make any progress. All right. So the core problem then. The core problem is that almost all present law, almost all social, legal, self-regulatory tools, the ways that we think about data and the ways that we think about the problem, focus on informing, educating, and empowering individuals. The difficulty is that it doesn't work, that we're revealing information about other people all the time, that empowering me doesn't help when the data is being provided by someone else. And so what we need to do is go back to listening to groups, cooperate, to develop language about how they want this problem worked out between them. And data use and privacy, of course, is at core a social question. It's not an individual question. If we were all on desert islands, we wouldn't care about privacy, about data use. Rather, this is always a question of what others can do. What can they do with it? What do we want others to know? What do we want an artificial intelligence algorithm to be able to find out about us and convey to other people? Other people, community, society, those are the reasons for the question around privacy. The difficulty is that we've gotten stuck on these questions of individual control. All right. With that in mind, then, let's turn to the solution. In the breakout group, somebody was saying that the problem with a lot of these questions is that law simply can't keep up with technology, because technology is moving very, very quickly. Law lags behind. And indeed, we see that it takes years. Sometimes it takes 25 years. It took 25 years to get the second version of the GDPR, right? The previous Data Privacy Directive, now 25 years later, has become the GDPR. That took a quarter of a century to mature, to alter. And in the meantime, the technology has leaped forward. It's not an uncommon thing to hear that we can't keep up with technology because law is too slow. If we're going to be able to unpack that problem, we need to take a hard look at how it is that humans actually work together to solve new problems. We've been doing this for a very long time. We're extremely good at it. And so what we need to do is figure out how to use the same capacity for developing language in community that we've always used to get us out of changes in technological landscapes. Humans are different from other species on the planet. So entomologist, that's a bug guy, E.O. Wilson says, there are 3 truly eusocial species on the planet. That is, super cooperators, species that cooperate well above the normal rate. They don't just cooperate when it benefits them, they cooperate when it benefits other people in their group who are not kin related to them. Those 3 species on the planet are ants, bees,